Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wright Perspective. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on any and every platform you use to engage with us. Today, we're going to recap and discuss one of our mother's favorite movies, Fiddler on the Roof, a 1971 musical produced and directed by Norman Jewison, based on the 1964 stage musical of the same name. The cast includes Topol, Norma Crane, Leonard Frey, Molly Picone, Paul Mann, Rosalind Harris, Michelle Marsh, Neva Small, and Paul Michael Glazer. The film grossed $83.3 million worldwide on a $9 million budget, which made it the highest grossing film of 1971.
Wow.
The film also received 8 nominations at the 44th Academy Awards, and it won 2 Golden Globes. For some, these factoids would be enough to make this movie a classic, but today we will determine whether it is a classic from the right perspective. We'll do a recap, we'll discuss the movie, and then we'll take a vote using a voting symbol picked especially for this discussion. But we start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright. I'm the middle.
Hi, I'm Brittany Wright, and I'm the youngest.
And y'all, when we took this movie on, and we had to, because it is a part of our childhood, the only thing I could really remember were some of the main songs. Because I just remember us running around talking about, if I were a rich man. Like,
listen, and
I
there's nothing
really
you
remember the movie.
We were just listing off those people. There's nothing you couldn't tell me before I watched the movie that Barbra Streisand wasn't in this movie. I just knew Barbra Streisand was in this movie. She was Saito. There was nothing you could tell me. I watched the movie. I said, well, listen, that's not her. That's not Barbara. That's not Barbara at all.
Definitely not.
It's not her. I said, well, all right. I was mistaken. But they do favor just a tinge.
So did y'all remember the movie, or were you kind of like me? Like,
no. I didn't. I know that we watched it a lot, but I didn't remember it.
Mm-mm.
I knew it was long because I remember.
I knew the songs.
Yeah,
I remembered the songs.
I remember the songs.
I knew it was going to be long.
Yeah,
and I knew it was going to be long. I remembered certain scenes, like when he was walking with the horse walking behind him. And the horse looked like it was about to walk off the road. I remember
the start of the scene where you actually see the fiddler on the roof.
Okay.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So no, it was like watching it kind of for the first time, but not really.
Yeah, me too.
That's how I felt too. It's so crazy how it just didn't stick.
But here's the crazy part. When the beat dropped, that's what I've been telling Aubrey and Janai, y'all. When that very first beat dropped in the beginning, I said, it's Fiddler on the Roof. I knew what was going down. So it was weird. It was like new and nostalgia all at the same time. I don't understand how that happened.
I feel that way too.
I get it though.
You set it up.
Yeah.
That's how it felt.
I get it.
That's how it felt. And then when it came down to picking a voting symbol, I have one to recommend, which is honestly, it just feels like the right thing to do for the symbol to be the fiddler on the roof, and part of it is that, at the top of the movie, the main character, he tells us what the fiddler on the roof symbolizes. He says it symbolizes basically like the fragility of their balance of life in their village, and he says, and this is from my notes, I think this might be an exact quote. He says, without traditions, our lives will be as shaky as a fiddler on the roof. And so the fiddler on the roof, it symbolizes their struggle. Like, so for the main family that's in the movie, they're struggling financially, they're even struggling socially to hold on to their traditions. And the community in general is struggling to like hold on to tradition while times are changing around them. And some of it is imposed change, and some of it is coming from within, the community itself kind of like aching for something different to happen, and so the fiddler on the roof throughout the movie, he comes to the main character almost as like a grounding force. It's like something good has happened, the fiddler comes and is present in the moment. Something bad happens. The fiddler comes and is just present in the moment. And so this is what the movie is about. It's about this push and pull between, what always has been and what is inevitably going to be, And so I think that the Fiddler on the Roof could be a good symbol. Did y'all come up with anything? Potential voting symbols?
Well, the thing about a Fiddler on the Roof, I argue that it's not a symbol. It's a person.
But he's not real. Nobody can
I know,
but
but
the main character.
I think it has to be the fiddle. I just felt like it had to be. I felt like all three of us were just going to come up with the fiddle.
Now, bro, why just the fiddle?
I don't know. I just really feel like it's a great symbol for this movie. Obviously, the fiddle on the roof represents everything you explained. But he's nothing without the fiddle.
It's true, because what's he doing up there if he don't got the fiddle?
And a fiddle's a good symbol.
Yes.
And it felt like a good symbol for this movie. What is the fiddler without his instrument?
I agree.
But it's not as deep as Jania's reasoning.
Well,
that's deep.
But the fiddle, but that's the point, bro, because I actually really like that. Because the fiddle, maybe that's what he's holding on to. Maybe that's the thing he's grasping to. The fiddler is holding on to the fiddle because it's what is his truth. Maybe that's the thing that's almost slipping away. So maybe the fiddle symbolizes tradition, bro. You're a genius.
I think we should start doing a segment where we have Genia make anything deep. I would love, like, we just bring random stuff and have her break it down on the spot, though. On the spot, because I think she can do it.
Well, I, for one, think you're both full of crock.
Oh, my God.
You want to know why you're both full of crock?
Why that?
Because I was like, they named this movie The Fiddler on the Roof. We see this doggone fiddler 3 times. You know what? This is not the right title for this movie. And I know that's been the title of this play and this movie since when, sis? When did it come out?
71, but it's actually based on a stage musical that had been out before that.
Right. Both of them wrong.
Well, then what's your idea?
What do you think it should be called?
Because right now you're just being negative. You have no
offer a solution.
I don't have one. But I tell you this, it shouldn't have been called that. Maybe called tradition, something else. And I think that a good symbol is, but you said it can't be a person. But I feel like the symbol
we've had people.
Is Topol. What's his name in the movie?
Tevi.
His real name is Topol.
Yeah.
Tevi. I think Tevi, because this movie is about him and all that he is going through. I think it should be Tevi is a symbol. Namely the one where he's inside the barn and he's like this.
I would like to strike that recommendation from consideration. Because you can't just pull out the main character and say they're the symbol.
They are
That's
the
not how
symbol.
This works.
Yes,
That's
it is.
How any of this works.
This is a man who is traditional, but he is also having to forge himself into getting out of tradition and question certain things. And even certain stuff that he says, the good book says this. They are things that you made up, Tevi. These are not things that are actually in the good book. So even this man that is supposed to be so traditional is creating his own traditions in his own mind. Listen,
correct me if I'm wrong.
The name of this movie is really Tevi.
I thought Tevi's tradition.
Tevi's tradition.
I really thought that.
Might hurt sad.
I thought the whole concept of the Fiddler on the Roof, and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
I thought.
Consider yourself
corrected.
How did he explain the concept? I thought
he said it at the beginning.
Yeah, he was saying that
Genia said it.
Tradition is shaky, right?
No, he said, hold on, I just had it pulled up. He said, without our traditions, our lives will be shaky as a fiddler
on the roof. Right. So I'm just saying that is what it was about. Because he...
Well, sis, you really just gave me an opportunity to share a factoid.
That was a deep discussion we just had.
I didn't know if this factoid was
going to cross, like I said earlier. No.
The title actually comes from a painting by a Russian artist, Mark Chagall, and it's called The Dead Man. And it depicts a funeral scene and shows a man playing a violin on a rooftop. And it's also used by Tevi in the story as a metaphor for just trying to survive in a difficult, constantly changing world. You know.
That makes it even worse.
All right, so
that doesn't help me. I don't.
We've been on this part.
Let's go with fiddle.
Can we just do a fiddle, Brittany? Please.
Fine, or we could do fuel and fiddle and the popcorn, whatever you want to do. This is fine. We can do the fiddle.
What is
the popcorn called?
No one knows. Anyway,
fiddle battle popcorn.
It's just not relevant.
That's fine. Do you eat popcorn when you watch a movie? It's always relevant.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone's getting a sense.
You're welcome. I'm representing the people. Okay. You two are representing you. I'm representing the masses.
They don't want that.
The masses of people want it. Don't you want it? Do you hear them? Yes, we want it. And I'm just like, you're welcome, masses. You're welcome, masses. I've been saying everyone wants to say don't.
Well, great, sis. Thank you. Let's go with fiddle.
All right, fine.
And we're, and it works. It works,
It works.
It is about the tradition. It's what we're holding on to, trying to, against all odds. And, the way that our podcast works is at the end of the podcast, we will vote. And this movie, Fiddler on the Roof, is going to need to receive 3 fiddles in order to be considered a classic from the Wright perspective. It could get 0, it could get 1, it could get 2. But if it's not 3, if it's not unanimous, it's not going to be a classic from the Wright perspective.
You're out of here.
It's not. Okay, so let's do a recap. And we always do a recap, spoiler alert, okay? Because our content is from 1971? Clearly it's old, okay? So people don't remember, or they haven't seen it in a while, or they just are, they just want to follow the podcast, but haven't taken in the content yet. And so we do a recap to make sure people can track the conversation. So let's walk through real quickly. So Fiddler on the Roof takes place in 1905 in the Jewish village of Anatevka, situated in the Russian Empire. The movie centers around a Jewish man named Tevi, played by Topol, and his family, which includes his wife, Goldie, played by Norma Crane, and his 5 daughters, 3 of which are marriageable. Seitzel, the oldest daughter, played by Rosalind Harris, Hodel, the second daughter, played by Michelle Marsh, and Hava, the third daughter, played by Neva Small. They are a poor family. Tevi is a milkman, and all of the women work in the home and tend their meager farm. Sometimes Tevi fantasizes about what it would be like to be a rich man with lots of options for his life and for his family. But then he goes back to pulling his milk cart down the road to make his deliveries. Everyone in Anatevka is very big on tradition. They do the things they have always done in the way they have always done them because that is how they do them. Okay, so imagine how hard it is on Tevi when his daughters begin to break some of the core traditions related to marriage. Traditionally, a matchmaker brokers a match. The potential husband and the father of the bride would negotiate, and then the daughter is just told who her new husband would be. Seitzel, the oldest, begs to be released from the marriage that her father has arranged because she is already in love with a boy she grew up with. Tevi is in shock, but does grudgingly support her. Then his second daughter, Hodel, falls in love with the Jewish revolutionary that was just passing through. Not only does she accept his marriage proposal without her father's permission, she follows him to Siberia when he gets arrested during a demonstration in Kiev. Tevi is again in shock, but he grudgingly does give his blessing. The straw that actually breaks the camel's back is when his third daughter, Hava, not only picks her own husband, but the young man is not Jewish. This one, Tevi cannot abide. And when he doesn't give his blessing, Hava elopes and gets married in the Russian Orthodox Church. Tevi says Hava is dead to him. At the same time that Tevi and the town are grappling with all of this loss of tradition, Jewish towns all across their region are being targeted by the Russian government. They're being terrorized and they're being expelled under force if needed. And suddenly it's Anna Tevka's turn. Agents of the government set fire to the town, ravage the homes and businesses, and then tell the Jewish people they have 3 days to leave. Realizing they've done nothing to prepare themselves to fight, and that fighting would probably be a futile endeavor anyway, the whole village packs up everything they can carry on their backs and leave the only home they have ever known and head to various parts of Europe, Israel, and the United States. Tevi, his wife, and 3 of his daughters, the 2 youngest and the oldest, Zeitzel, and her husband and child are heading to Chicago. They hope the second daughter might join them after her husband is released from incarceration in Siberia. The third, Hava, and her husband, they don't actually have to leave the town because they're not Jewish, but they do so anyway as an act of solidarity. The movie ends with the people of the town receiving a prayer from their rabbi and then going their separate ways on foot. The end.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah, and
brava.
I will say this, and this is maybe a kickoff to the conversation. One of the things that we always talk about what qualifies a good musical as a good musical is if the songs in the musical move the story along. And I will say, in writing the recap, there were parts of the story that were told through music.
Strictly through the songs.
Songs. And so in that way, just in writing the recap, it was checking off that box of like, was the music there for the sake of, or was it a meaningful tool for the storytelling? And I think it was. I don't know. What do you think, bro and sis?
Yeah, I that was something I actually noticed. Just every song definitely there were certain songs that had information that wasn't even repeated outside of the song.
It's true.
Which, and at the same time, it was all, in my opinion, musical level singing. So like when Topol is singing, not only is he telling part of the story, but just, you feel the emotion of what he is communicating. Like,
totally agree.
If I was rich, where he's giving you that emotion through the song. If I wasn't rich, man. Like you can see him just fantasizing, like I would have to worry about none of this, but I do though. And all of that was happening in the song. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It was definitely good from that perspective.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you think about the song from the Daughters when they are singing about being a matchmaker.
Make me a matchmaker.
The song flows from like Saito being like, "Are y'all crazy? Y'all want a matchmaker?" And then all of a sudden they're all like, "Okay, never mind. Hold off. We're good to go." By the end of the song. And then you even have, which was one of my favorites, Sunrise, Sunset. Listen, I had that song placed at a different part in the movie. When I heard where it was and I listened to the words, I said, oh, this is really a song just about how people are feeling as times are changing in a family. And what, you know them from little kids, now they're adults and they're getting married and they're just speaking about the emotions of what that is. And so I thought that was just such a good song.
I can listen to that song by itself.
Totally.
It was so good.
Totally.
Even right to the song where the whole scene that they had whenever Kia, I'm saying his name wrong. Y'all know I'll be saying names right. Tevi had to made up a whole nightmare to make sure that his daughter didn't get married to the butcher. It was so funny. I was like, you made up this entire nightmare out of nowhere. Just so she could be like, nope, it's not. The wife could be like, no, it's not going to happen. I was just laughing how the two of them were not maliciously.
Wait, you lost me real quick. We were talking about songs and connected to tell me where was the bridge from the songs to the dream?
Oh, because they were singing in that part of the dream.
Yeah, the Tevi's dream was a musical number.
It was a musical number.
Gotcha.
It was. It
I'm
definitely
there.
was.
I'm back with you.
I was about to say, oh no.
I knew
It had that one.
Never mind.
That was actually one of the largest musical numbers.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms
No,
of
Mhm.
number of
I
performers.
thought in my head in the moment, I thought it was a scene with musical numbers. You're saying even the whole thing. I'm with you. Let's go.
I think it was, you know, because and just for those who haven't seen it, to give a little more context of the part Brittany was just talking about, it, you know, what has
Brittany, don't
happened
lose
is
that. I want to hear the rest of that thought. But go ahead.
And this
It's
is
gone.
something that we were texting about as
So
we
sorry.
were watching it at separate times, because we all really enjoyed this scene. Tevye has agreed to support his first daughter's decision to break tradition and pick her man. Okay, even though he had already done the work to negotiate her marriage, and then he's like,
That was
okay.
not work. He took shots with the butcher. Let's be clear about
He
what
had to
work
walk
was.
He shook his
all the
hand,
way
Brittany.
over there.
Okay,
He shook his
Have a
hand.
full conversation.
There was no
Okay.
work. Let's be very clear.
It was
This
no work.
this little busybody matchmaker lady, little old lady just walking around the town taking people's.
Yente.
Okay, Yente, her husband is dead, which she's happy about, and she is.
Yo, when she
walking
read
around
old
this-
girl's letter,
so
I was like,
funny.
this chick is off the
She's
chain.
so rude. She's
so
walking around
funny.
this town. She goes to the wife. What's the wife's name again?
Goldie.
Anna.
Goldie, played
She
by
goes
Norman
to
Jewison.
to Goldie,
And
she
Yente,
tells
by the
her,
way, is played by Molly Picone.
and Yente goes to Goldie and is like, listen, the butcher thinks that Saito is cute. That's her husband. Okay. Then Goldie has to trick Tevye into going to see the butcher. Okay. Then they just get drunk and then shake hands. No. Because at
So
first,
that's not work.
Tevye went there and thought that he was going talking about a cow. And the conversation was even worse because he was like, "You're talking about your daughter like that."
That was funny
Listen,
too. Like
it
that was
hilarious.
that was actually funny.
It
Like
was.
like the thing is a lot of times in musicals, you have to, it's a musical. So you gotta be like, all right,
Yes.
Something's gonna be a little corny, but it's corny in a good way.
Yeah.
But then there are some times that conversation I felt like had actual comedic value.
It absolutely
When
did.
he was, because basically he's thinking he's talking about, like Brittany said, he's thinking about talking, selling his cow. And the guy is talking about marrying his daughter. And they really wrote it in a way that both sides of the conversation made sense. You know what I mean?
Mhm. And another reason why that little scene is really important is that they have this throughout the movie, there are moments where we get to hear Tevye's inner thought. Part of it is like the Fiddler on the Roof. That's Tevye's inner thought, his inner processing of a moment. But also there'd be times where he would just look right to the camera and kind of like talk to us like, well, I guess I could go this route. If I do, here are the implications. If I go this route, here are the so we get to see him tussling with something. There's a moment in that scene with the butcher where he's like, well, debating the pros and cons of marrying his daughter to this man. And the butcher is actually wealthy. He's wealthy, considered wealthy in the village. And so this is a coup. Like, this is great news because his family is poor and he's going to have the opportunity to marry his daughter to a wealthy man. Now, he is much older. He's probably more than twice Seifel's age.
It seemed like he was older. It seemed like he was older than him.
He was older than Tevye because he actually said, I've just been looking forward to my daughter getting married. Now, no, he said, I've been looking forward to having a son. I always thought I'd be older than him, but
right. Yeah, he did say that. That's right.
I know how to do it.
Because his first wife passed away, which I'm like, I feel like if you're on round 2, you don't get to get somebody that's 20. That's not fair.
You get whatever but that's the decision. The man just gets to pick.
But I think which is important to point out, like, you could be having a conversation about a cow and you could be having a conversation about a daughter and y'all are having the same conversation.
And you can get pretty far before things need to get clarified.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's bartering.
That's a problem. It's bartering goods, right? Yo.
And so what ends up happening is Tevye, of course, tells his wife Goldie, "Oh, we've got the match. Everybody's successful, is excited." Okay. He then finds out that his daughter is not down for this arranged marriage. And she has this guy she's grown up with, she wants to marry. And he goes along with it. He's like, okay, maybe marrying for love is the thing. We never did it, but maybe it's the thing now. Okay. And he's like, how am I going to tell my wife? How am I going to tell Goldie that I don't support this marriage to this wealthy man, which was such good news? And so instead, he comes up with this whole lie that one of the wife's ancestors came to him in a dream and basically said that the guy that the daughter actually wanted to marry was the right guy. And in the dream, the dead wife of the butcher, who was the actual person that Seitzel was supposed to be marrying, came back and said she was going to kill Seitzel.
She was going to kill Seitzel. She was going to haunt her for.
And she married her husband. And so they did this whole fantastical scene of this dream he was lying about. He just made it up, and the wife fell for it.
She woke up. She was like, "No, we basically had to tell the butcher they can't get me out." I said, but what was so funny was watching her and it wasn't that's what I was going to say earlier, bro. Watching her, they weren't maliciously manipulating each other, but they both at some point were manipulating each other.
They knew how to get results out of it.
Yes, it was so
totally.
It was so funny.
And what was the movie? I'm blanking. I think it was it was one of the movies we watched from the 50s. Oh man, where they would have these elaborate breakaway scenes where it was like these, it was one of the black and white ones. I think it was or earlier Technicolor. And they would have these musical numbers that were huge, but they just had nothing to do with the story. I'm trying to.
Do you mean Singing in the Rain?
I think it was Singing in the Rain.
I
think it was Singing in the Rain. But
I just went to our content planner and I looked down the 50s column. And Singing in the Rain.
We know you're very organized.
I just wanted to tell you how I was able to get to that answer so efficiently.
Thank you.
I know you really don't look at the content plan.
I look at it religiously every day. I pray to it. Dear content planner, help me to have a good day.
But I feel like this was the opposite of that, in the sense of all of the breakaways. I really enjoyed how they used it as a device.
True.
Like when every time he started talking, it kind of made me excited. Like when he turned to the screen and he started talking, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is going to be another one of his, he's thinking.
Yes.
And that's how life works. You go through these complex thought processes pretty fast.
You have to.
And while you're talking, but really, all of that happened. It could be a long conversation you have with yourself, even if it happened in a moment.
Yes.
And to see how even they framed it, how, okay, you could do something very simple to illustrate what's happening. And you would just see the person he's talking in front of very far away. So it's just
that cinematography was a great idea.
When he breaks into the thoughts where he's talking out his thoughts, whoever he's talking to is in the distance somewhere.
Yeah.
Even though he hasn't really moved away from them physically. But I'm just saying that's a great way to illustrate that. So,
and exactly why this movie is called Tevi's Traditions and not Fiddler on the Roof.
It's just not helpful or good. It's not.
We were in a really good rhythm. I mean,
we're still the rhythm is still going. The rhythm is still going for me. The rhythm is still going. We haven't lost the rhythm. We haven't lost the rhythm.
And I want to let y'all know this
has been enhanced.
The rhythm is still going.
Brittany, you mentioned the matchmaker character Yente. Okay. As much as I enjoyed
this little old lady,
these moments with Tevi, where we were just in intimate moments with him and his thoughts, I truly enjoyed those. I also really, really enjoyed this busybody little lady just running around town, essentially doing whatever she wants. She comes over,
literally.
She comes over to Tevi and Goldie's house, And literally, she's chit-chatting with the wife and just puts all the baked goods that have been put out. She just puts them all into her purse.
She put them in her little knapsack.
Unabashedly, and just took it with her.
And it was when she forgot to tell her. She forgot to tell her what she came there for before she did it. She was just about to leave.
She went to the post office, got somebody else's mail, handed it to them, and then told them what was in there.
Yo, that was the one that it moved that character from being cute to me to like I actually didn't like her after that. Like because up until then, I can't stand entitled people like that in general. Yeah. But that's what you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yo, she write her mail? Like that is
no, see, you're mad at the wrong person. We need to be mad at the postmaster. How did you give her somebody else's
But imagine what power she
What is going on?
But what
I'll give it to her.
It was about her power. You know, if you're the matchmaker and you are the channel, the only way that people get married is if you have brokered it. She had a kind of social capital.
Yeah.
What would the postman do? Maybe the postman has a daughter that's up for getting married. You know what I mean?
All right,
anything.
Okay, all right, you brought it back.
Doing whatever she wants to do.
You're right.
He does whatever she wants.
That is the point they were trying to make.
That's the point.
That's okay.
Listen, which also speaking of, because I want you all to notice how we're talking about the musical scenes, but it's taking us into just the actual movie.
Yes.
That's how, so that's just to show you how more powerful how important and how they place these musical scenes so well.
Yeah.
Another thing that makes me think of was during their prayer and how they were making sure they were getting ready to be ready to do prayer. And what is
Sabbath
it called?
prayer.
Thank you, Sabbath prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And just how beautiful the Sabbath prayer was, where they were just praying blessings over their daughters and their family and all these different things. And so just getting an opportunity just to see them taking on that part of the tradition and that still being important for their family. So Tevi getting that opportunity to have that. But even then there was a little bit of non-tradition because they had a stranger at one of their Sabbaths. It was a guy he just met that day. He was like, you don't have any place to do Sabbath? Come home with me. We'll make an extra place, for you to be there. So I did appreciate that part as well. That
was breaking tradition.
Wasn't that tradition? Maybe so. It was just like, okay, this is just an extra person I got to set up for. Okay.
Sure they have
obviously
tradition. But
I feel like any of us are grossly unqualified to recognize what exactly traditions
were. I do Sabbath tradition all the time.
Well, I will tell you.
What are you talking about?
I will tell you, I did do, bro, you just gave me a natural segue to kind of share. I did do like a little bit of Googling, and I don't want to give any indication that I did an in-depth search. But I did wonder, like, as much as I was enjoying this movie and like even like the Sabbath prayer scene, it was like I just loved it so much. It felt so intimate. It felt so real. I was also acknowledging I don't know the actual Sabbath tradition. Mm-hmm. And so I started to think, like, what do Jewish people feel about this movie? Because I just reflect when I was talking about West Side Story, where we were just like, okay, maybe this is like, there are parts that are super fun to watch, but there are some pieces that are just actually not accurate and not accurate to the point that they're offensive, Yeah. And so I started to think, well, what if I'm sitting here enjoying this and the actual Jewish community is saying, WTF, that ain't how Sabbath goes, And so I started Googling, like, how does a Jewish community feel about this movie, and I got to tell y'all, I did not find anything that was like the way that if you Google about West Side Story, there are so many people kind of saying,
how it comes up immediately.
There's so much inaccurate. The casting is problematic. I didn't see a bunch of that. Now, there were a couple of, websites where they were basically doing some correction on like historical pieces, where they were kind of saying, like, historically, this is actually what happened. So they were, saying that there were some things that were inaccurate, but they were not saying there were things that were offensive.
Yeah.
And I
can appreciate that.
But I appreciated
that. Yeah, from the cursory. And like you said, if you're Googling about West Side Story, it ain't no question.
It's not hard to see.
It just comes up.
People struggle.
What? I don't understand how people struggle with that. I love when Grecian people play.
Okay.
Puerto Rican people. Don't you love that? That's so great.
Brittany is a little ornery today. Okay.
Well,
it's so awesome.
You actually gave me an opportunity for
but I don't want to.
So I will give one more. Well, let me correct myself. Then.
Okay.
I don't want to go away from that. It was funny though, that more so not the traditional parts. Let me take that back. But heard the mother just being like, okay, let me set another let me set another place.
Yeah.
For these two extra people.
Yeah, because for their family, the husband just randomly bringing someone home. That was nuts. They were shocked by it. It didn't happen, because they didn't get a lot of new people. That was something they had established early in the movie, that they didn't get a whole lot of new people to town that were in the Jewish community. There were other, then they were like, he was calling like the others, or like the outsiders that were coming, but their community was set, So I start again in this exploration of like, authenticity for this movie from the Jewish perspective. What is it? It turns out that the director, whose name is Norman Jewison, was brought into the project by executives at United Artists because they thought he was Jewish. And his first words to the executives upon meeting them were, I'm not Jewish, right?
Are you serious?
Yeah. So do you see how he got brought in? Because they just had a misconception. Part of me is like, well, I appreciate the attempt to find, someone Jewish who could pull the story to life. They weren't successful. But obviously whatever he did come up with, the community is not, again, just apparently offended.
From a cursory research.
You know what?
So the director,
at least he was sensitive. Jewish. At least he was sensitive. That's what's important. That's important. Wow, that is bananas. I'm not. Just I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that was interesting to me about this, anytime I'm watching, it's interesting how, however accurate it is, whenever somebody's telling stories like this, there are universal truths that you can relate to regardless. And the concept of one generation looking at it one way and the next generation questioning that, I feel like there must be some truth to that in every, it probably varies by, degree, obviously, you know what I'm saying? But just that, well, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And realizing that there are some good things about the tradition and just that constant, well, let's take what's good, polish it. Let's grow now that we got more information. I feel like that's something we all can relate to,
Absolutely.
And like one of my favorite albums that I've ever listened to is Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. I love that album. And the reason why I love that album, I feel like she illustrated to me what it's like to be a Catholic girl growing up in Canada, which is what you would think would be a pretty diametric.
Very far from your experience.
From my experience, but at the same time,
it is.
But here's the thing, though, like when she's singing about like when you're immersed in a certain, type of upbringing, you start feeling rebellious. You start feeling like you want to do, and it's like it might not be the same, but the emotion comes from the same place, and I get it. And I'm just saying, I felt like that watching this. I felt like
totally.
I don't know how accurate this is, but the way the story's being told, it just speaks to like we have these universal truths that I feel like everybody, deals with and encounters. And this is just an illustration of that.
I agree with that, bro. And one of the things that struck me, and again, it is a truth to me, when you are well steeped in a thing, you, in many cases, are the most qualified to question it because you know it, you understand it, so you can really start to question it. And the fact that all of Chevy's daughters, all three of them, understood tradition, but still wanted to chart their own path, there's something that's almost, I mean, in some ways, it makes him even more successful in teaching them tradition, because they were also somehow nurtured to be empowered enough to kind of say, I have a different opinion, you know. And his whole family, all of his daughters breaking the tradition, not one, all of his marriage age daughters. It's like there's in some ways he did something right there, you know,
to help them have their own minds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about, but even with that, you still got an opportunity to see Tevi and Goldie have a conversation in a moment to say, we love each other. Tevi and Goldie, they didn't meet each other until the day that they got married.
That's right.
Great musical scene.
And so just seeing them having a question, he was like, because after listening to his daughters talk about love, he was questioning the concept of love. And he's like, you know, Goldie, do you love me? And she's like, what? I do this for you. I do that for you. You know, of course, like, but they really had to stop and have this conversation. And it was just them naming that they do love each other. Mm-hmm. Even if but they had a traditional type of way that they were put together. So it was showing that, you know, both can work, right?
And the last line of that song is like, you know, it doesn't change a thing to know that we love each other. They're saying it for the first time, right? And the last line of the song says, it doesn't change a thing, but after 25 years, it's nice to know.
Yes. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful.
I'm just glad you brought that up, sis, because I do think that was a really powerful part, because
it was.
The thing is, you're not saying the tradition doesn't work, because clearly it was successful in this instance.
That's right.
These two people are loyal to each other. They produced 3 successful children. And they obviously support and know each other. And they've even learned how to work within the context of each other. Like, they manipulate each other. That it might have been a thing that they wouldn't have got married if they knew this about each other and they had a choice. But it's like, no, but we figured out how to
work,
communicate and how to work it. And I'm just saying that works too. So it's like you're not taken away from either way of finding, you know, yourself and finding your partner. But, and you can understand that, look, of course he's committed to it because it's been working in a way. I mean, this is producing families, this is producing outcomes and kids, and this is how it's working. But at the same time, it's just like, yo, you trying to have somebody, he's 3 times her age. Right. Like, and you know, even coming from a dude is like, I mean, I'm not, you know, it's not gonna raise my eyebrow until it's extreme for a man dating a young woman. I mean, it's not immediately gonna, but I mean, good gracious, like, this dude was old. Like, that's not,
he
like,
was.
Like, I mean, seeing them walk down the street, nobody's going to think they're a couple. Even
that is your grand, that is your pop.
Even back then, like, you know,
that's your pop. I was the part of what you're talking about in that dynamic between Goldie and Tevi was whenever Saito's husband, what was her husband's name?
Let me find it.
He sews, and he got a new sewing machine.
Yeah.
You know, everyone in the town was coming to see it, and I can't remember quite why, but Goldie and their two youngest daughters had went to go see the machine, and Tevi was not with them, and they were leaving out the house. Right. And Tevi was just getting there. And Goldie was like, Tevi, it's time to go. He's like, we gotta go. Tevi went into like this conniption. I am the man. I am going to see this. You're not going to rush me. And so she just stands there Her and the daughters need to stay quiet. He goes into the house for 2 seconds and he comes back out.
Now we can go.
No. And it was just
Taylor. His name was Mottle.
Taylor, that's the word.
His name was Mottle, and he
Mottle.
eventually married Tidal, and he was played by Leonard Frey.
Oh goodness, he was so good in that role. He did such a good job. He was making me mad a little bit though. I was like, if you would just say something that you would have married her.
Yeah, I do.
But
Saito was so patient.
Because it's about breaking when you respect the tradition so much. Yeah. But you're feeling compelled to break it. That's a hard thing to overcome. That is hard. You know, and so it was like you were watching him like, get some spine, brother. Dude, say it.
Yeah, you know,
but he's overcoming not just the relationship with the father, he's overcoming hundreds of years of tradition.
Is it?
And he's not qualified. He's like, I don't have money. I don't have anything to offer. Yeah. What my package is not attractive, you know? All I have is love. And love has not ever been enough.
They started getting into it.
And that was the other. I'm just telling you, like watching this, I felt like it's very relevant because here's the thing. When you talk about marriage and partnering up, I do think, and I don't want to get deep into this, but I do think that the idealistic part has gotten a little heavier over time. And basically, there's also a practical part that you need to think about when you're considering partnering with somebody. And it was just the transition that they're talking about from mixing the practical with, the love and everything. But it's like, basically that character was like, if you go just full love, right, without a plan, like that's not good either. But at the same time, like, let's not be marrying somebody who's 3 times my age. It's just this, just because they're rich. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I just feel like
it was like opening. It was basically saying there's no one recipe.
It's like
one daughter fell in love with somebody she grew up with. One daughter fell in love with somebody who was a revolutionary coming through town. Okay.
And she was challenging him. She was challenging him at certain parts, like, you said this, but XYZ, she was standing on her own. And he was able to go, he was a little smooth. He came near and started making her dance on the hillside. I said, I see what you're doing there.
Teaching her dance moves. And then the third daughter left her religion for a guy that she met. She allowed herself even to be courted by this guy that wasn't Jewish. She knew he wasn't Jewish, and she allowed herself to be courted by him. So it was, if it was saying anything about the recipe, it was saying there is no recipe. There's no one way, because the arranged marriages work, but so did I'm now married to this guy I met on the street. Okay, and this is working out just fine.
We're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just saying, you mentioned the dancing, and that was another thing that was really good. Like the scenes where I don't know what the name of it is, but that specific kind of dancing with the guys that
at the bar.
Well, I think there was 2 really big scenes. There was one at the bar. I think the other one was at the wedding. Some kind of
okay. The one at the bar, the song was "To Life." Okay.
But I thought there was another. I'm blanking. I felt like there was 2 scenes where they had they were like, the guys were
the wedding celebration had the bottle dance where they
so it was the wedding.
So and those 2.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about in a musical. Like watching something that like, that is impressive. The way you're doing that.
Yes.
Like in real life, there's no cinematography making you be able to do this dance. Like you actually had to learn how to do that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like we talk about in Greece, where it's like,
I'm not. First of all, what we not gonna do, is disrespect Greece.
Not disrespect the Greece.
We're not going to disrespect Greece. Hold on.
I'm saying I can do all the dances. I feel like
I want to see what you do with a lamb, and a ding a dong. Okay, I don't think you can. I don't think you can do with a lamb, and a ding a dong. No, you don't.
Now I don't know how
I can master any of the dances in a good 30 minutes.
But yeah,
I want to see you slide on the floor on your knees and get back up and then start twirling. When you do that.
And you know what was so whack about that? They thought it was way more impressive than it was, which made it even worse. All right, we're getting sidetracked.
I know. Tevi's tradition is making y'all lose y'all minds.
I'm just so happy that we're celebrating the quality of the dance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because and this is the double whammy. Okay. Not only so the thing you were talking about, bro, the to life scene. Tevi has just negotiated with the butcher. His daughter's getting married. They go into a bar to celebrate with all the men. So now all the men of the town know before the daughter even knows who her betrothed will be. Okay. All the men are celebrating a marriage is going to happen. And what is so good is that not only is it good singing, not only is it good dancing, the storytelling, because they actually use that scene to have the Jewish people dance in their traditional way, and then they have the
Russian soldiers.
Yes, they have the other people, the people that are like calling the outsiders, that we get to see their dance tradition, and then what happens at the end? They dance together. They respect each other's different dance movements. So it was a part of the story of like, yeah, we're coexisting here, and we're doing it peacefully for the most part.
And it was
all learning each other's traditions, but respecting each other's traditions.
And to speak on that, they started dancing men and women at the wedding. It was also, because
another storytelling point of embracing the changing tradition.
Also showing that change is going to happen.
It's happening.
Listen, I know they were looking at Tevi like, hold up. First of all, your daughter's married for love. First of all, you broke an engagement. Your daughter's married for love. And now you got men and women dancing at the wedding.
And now
y'all are tripping.
like you can feel a different version where somebody was like, where you can hear the old black lady gossiping. If it was a different culture. Girl, not only did they marry for love, number one, they broke marriage engagement, and then they was dancing at the wedding, girl, men and women.
Wait, that's what Yente's doing, but that's what Yente did the next day for sure. That's what Yente was watching around. What happened, but you ain't heard it from me. That's essentially Yente's character.
Which happened at that wedding, which was showing the hard part, right? Which was in the movie. If you ever, back in the day when it was on VHS, this is where the intermission happened. And you had to start watching the second VHS. Aubrey, I'm a little older. And so just a tinge. I'm a little older, just a tinge. But watching this during this part, you're finding out just throughout the movie that there is some pressure by the Russian government on the Russian soldiers in Anatevka to basically assert power and to do some sort of shenanigans to the town, which was to basically, like Janai said earlier, burn down things, tear stuff up, just really, start some ruckus. The person who is over the Russian soldiers in that city, he is friends with the people there. He has good rapport with them. He doesn't have he knows that everybody is just doing what they need to do to live life. They're following their traditions. They're not bothering anybody. They're not bothering each other. They're not out here just doing things foolishly. They're living life. And so the Russian soldier, he knows that, and he's become very fond of them. But he has to fulfill.
He's the constable, played by Louis Zorich.
The constable, he has been given a directive. Either you do it or we gonna do it. And so
representatives from the Tsar's office comes to him and say, do you like these Christ killers? And he's like, things have been peaceful here. So literally they are telling him to move in a hatred that he does not feel.
He does not feel. Now, some of the soldiers that are there feel that way, but for what reason? There's no reason for them to feel that way. They just feel that way because they've been told to feel that way. So at any rate, they know they have to do something. The constable knows he has to do something. And he warns Tevi. And he lets him know, he says, this is after he was drunk celebrating an engagement that didn't happen. At the bar that night, he says, basically there are some things that are going to happen. I am good with you. I appreciate you. Like, this has nothing to do with you all, but it's just business, basically, that I have to do these certain things. Long story.
Because that's deep.
Frankly, and I have to say, we all do it. I would say
we all do it.
There are times, like, I think about my work, as you're talking, bro, I'm thinking about the work that I do. I'm a consultant for social justice organizations. And the leaders of these organizations have engaged me to come and do something. There's a scope of work. And that work has to be done. And it's not about my opinion about things many times. I can make recommendations, but there have been some decisions that have been made. There's some work that needs to be done. And then I have to do it. It's not my opinion, sometimes it isn't, I don't agree.
Right.
But the work, it still has to be done.
And I think that there was a way the constable was trying to save the Anatevka by making sure that he and his soldiers did it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I know if I would have let
Right.
This would have been far worse.
Let me do it.
Right. So at least I can
control
keep it minimal.
As much as I can.
Something.
Yeah.
And so they
and he even admitted it.
Yeah.
Like at the end, it's like, look, man, it was almost like he was just saying, like, I'm in an impossible.
Totally.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And Tevye doesn't say a thing because he's like, okay, you literally
got it.
You ain't have no choice. Looks like I don't either. My daughter's wedding's now been burnt down by you and your people. Here we are.
So now I can't even, not even with Tevye, he can't even have a or respect for him anymore because now I have to choose sides and I'm going to choose my people, regardless of what you do. But they choose the wedding to be the night that they do that display. And they come in, they destroy the wedding, they tear up their gifts that they just got. Now, you all remember, this is not some rich village. So anything that they're giving them honestly out of their lack, right? Out of what they have. So they're giving them pillows and a really nice blanket and a nice bed and, chickens from her ex-fiance, so that's the tea, okay? That's the tea, gave him some extra chicken. So anyway.
He was salty, by the way.
He was so mad, which was also funny.
I appreciate that because if they had not given us a chance to see the butcher react to the fact that the marriage contract had been broken, that to me would have been a gap I would have named in the story.
Yeah.
They allowed us to see him react, which I needed them to do. I was so happy when they did it.
I love when you
seeing them argue was funny.
It was so funny because right now,
comically written, very well comically written scene.
It's so, because we all think that my situation or my family or this is the worst. We all can have those moments, but then when you get a chance to look, and it's like, this is at the reception. This is a fun time. We're supposed to be having a good time, and y'all up here arguing about this. So give me your word.
And that pusher was trying to hold his tongue.
He was trying so hard. He tried so hard. He could not. He didn't hold it. And but they came through and they tore up all of their stuff.
Tore everything up.
I mean, destroy it. And then all Tevye could do in his anger, he was talking to God like, really? Like, seriously, this is where we're at. And
I was feeling those emotions.
Man, it was so raw. And then all you could do was say, clean up. So you have Saito there in her bridal gown and the family, they're cleaning up. Because what else do you do? What else do you do in that moment? You clean up and you keep it moving.
Okay, factoid time. Every time that Topol is talking to God, he's talking to a white ball on the end of a stick that's held out of camera range. Isn't that interesting? I love knowing these little
something to focus tricks.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, I know this is a musical and everything, but I was really feeling that way at the end because after I really felt the emotion when they invaded the wedding. Absolutely. Because it was just I feel like that's something that all of us experienced at some point was just like, what else you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like there are certain things that are so unjustified. But at the end of the day, what else?
You have to keep living.
Like what?
You have to keep going.
What else are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are things you encounter that, and you just think like objectively, what I just dealt with was wrong. Mm-hmm. But there's no way to fix it. I just have to move on.
Or you play in the parameters of it. You do what you can to be in the parameters of thing that you cannot change. You're like, okay.
Because when they went through that, because when they first told them to leave and they went through that thought process, at first it's like, nah, we're going to fight. You know, it's like fight who? Like, what you going to go take your broom and go swat the tank? Like, what are you going to do? Like, and then
I have a quote from that. Tevye was like, they were making this debate about like, you know, we know our time is going to be up. We know they're going to come for our village at some point. We need to get ready to fight. And then somebody's saying we should fight an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And then Tevye says, and if we did that, then the whole world would be blind and toothless.
That's right. That's right.
It's so good.
And the thing is that since we've all felt, you know what I mean? I just felt like that was a scene that everybody, you know, at the end, and even thinking about how, like, you're breaking these families up, but it's not even like we experience it from the sense of Brittany lives in Pittsburgh, Genia lives in New York, I live in Atlanta. We see each other physically pretty often. Well, video. We see each other at any moment. We could just pick up the phone, bang, you know, start a video chat between the three of us. But like being broken up on this level is like, we're not going to see each other
in
for
that time period,
years.
Or I may never see you again.
At all. Just for something I had no control over. I'm just saying, it was a heavy scene to me. In the midst of a musical that had whimsy and all of that, but the story was actually a good story that was taking you through the journey emotionally, especially at the end.
See, bro, you're talking about something that I love when I get a chance to see it in a movie, a musical, you know, whatever genre it is, but it's human. I love when I can see human. And like, well, you all know one of my, which is probably not the best Christmas movie because people make people sad, but The Family Stone is one of my favorite movies, and it is because it shows such a human moment in the movie and how life has to continue in spite of something that is tragic happening. You don't want to, you can never prepare for tragedy. You can try.
That's what it is.
You can't prepare for it. And so when you're in the moment of it, you just have to pick up the pieces where you can, little by little, and keep moving and make the next plan that can, okay, right, I thought that my next steps were going to be this. Now my next steps are not. What have you. But even when it's coming by force, which that we can get into a whole nother conversation of the powers that be, right? How people who are on the smaller end of something happening and how you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. You're just there. It's like one of those things where my one friend, she says it all the time. She's like, the rich sneeze, but like the poor catch a cold. Like it's just one of these things where it's just like, you can't do anything about it. And so it's just this larger conversation that was happening in this musical, but I appreciate the musical being able to still give you a sense of hope at the end.
They did.
You were like,
yeah, it was, because it wasn't. It was like tragic hope.
Yeah,
like it's not taken away from the situation is messed up. Period. But it was like, but these people are persevering. They're gonna.
That's it.
They're gonna keep going, and I believe they saw each other again at some point. I like that they showed it was a little seed of acceptance of the marriage.
Yes.
Outside of the faith. And it was at least a little.
Yeah, at the very end, when the daughter who has married a Russian Orthodox man and is no longer Jewish, she's left her religion behind. Tevi had essentially, he said, "You're dead to me." He had not talked to his daughter. Her and her husband, they leave town in solidarity with the Jewish people, even though they don't have to leave. And she stops by to say goodbye to her family. And the father, he still won't talk to her. He's not making eye contact, but he does give her a blessing through one of his other daughters.
Yeah.
And so you have this glimmer of like, they're going to reconnect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, because if they show up with that baby, Tevi is, come on, man. Like you show up with his grandbaby.
It's over.
I don't see him.
He's not gonna do that.
Yeah, I don't see him fighting through that. Like,
yeah,
and
he's too family oriented. Like, yeah.
And I will say this, something I think that I don't think anyone talks about, and I think is very important to note. Tevi is strong. Okay, Tevi is strong, y'all. Tevi was dragging their house on his back down a mud road like he was a horse. I was like, Tevi, that's not like one or two things. First of all, it's a wooden carriage. That's number one. That's already heavy. That's number one, okay? That's an animal's pulling that normally. And then all that stuff was on there. I was like, I don't know if this was a point. I don't know where this is, but I think we all need to say, this man is strong, okay?
Oh, when his horse, he was like, my horse is lame. He went and dropped the horse off and grabbed the
he said, I still have to make my milk delivery. I would have just been done for the day. I would have said,
no sick day.
We don't have no other horse. I can't borrow one.
He asked for no PTO.
No, he didn't attach to a cow or nothing. He just was like, hey, it's on me. I said, oh no, Tevi, that is heavy. No,
that's funny. Yeah, that is
strong.
And that's why, honestly, that's why the seamstress, Taylor, what's his name? Anyway.
Model.
Yes.
But like, yeah, you could just tell he had that respect. It's like,
he was a little bit
he was definitely getting on my nerves. But it's just like, yo, can you imagine? Like Tevi will rip that dude in half. He had respect for Tevi on a bunch of different. It's absolutely. Like, number one, the faith. Number two, you're the father of the one I want to marry. But number three, you be dragging wagons that horses drag. So,
and also,
you could beat my ass.
Yeah, just
I'm gonna be dead if you wanted to kill me.
Like the physical strength, there is a mental strength that he had, because one of the things that keeps certain traditions, especially the ones like the male dominance traditions, one of the things that keeps those in place is like a fragility of ego. The kind of says, if I'm not situated here, then everything is off. And for him to be able to be strong enough to say, I can get over myself enough to let my daughters have some autonomy. It shows a mental toughness. That people around him might not have had. He was special, and he had given that to his daughters enough that they could, raise questions and try to assert their own thinking.
Well, men have daughters, they got to think a little differently now, especially when you got 5 of them. Mm-hmm. You got 5 daughters, your life, your perspective is starting to be shifted just a tinge when you start having five daughters in your house that will eventually become women.
Mm-hmm. You have 5 daughters, looking at you're a poor man, all of those things put him in a very unique view of the world. Absolutely. And they built this character in a way that we could see the results of that. He was thinking like a man that had 5 daughters. He was thinking like a man that was in an oppressed group, in the oppressed group of the oppressed group. Like, I'm at the bottom of the barrel here, and it's causing me to question things. Yeah, because something here the math ain't mathing.
Right.
You know.
Even in his song, If I Were a Rich Man, he was talking about, you know, how his wife would be and how she would be able to have like, you know, she would be plump and be able to have like rice or something like he was saying, and all these different things that he was just naming about what this life would look like if he was able to take care of his family in a different way. But with that being said, none of them wanted for anything.
Mm-hmm.
None of them they love. They never were hungry. They loved their father. They loved their mother. They were so happy to see him whenever he would come home. Mm-hmm. They knew that, and you know, which was funny as well, even though he's like, I am the man, he was still a little bit of putty in all of their hands. That because just as a good father will have with his daughter. Oh,
I can't imagine. I can't imagine because I, you know, like we joke about often, you know, I had a much different experience growing up than you two, but like we had all of our growing up was the same, but it was also different in a lot of ways of just, but yeah, you know, like when you looked out at your little daughter, she's like asking like, how do you say no and all that.
Totally. How can you continue to construct a world where women are subordinate when you have brought women into the world? You know,
I mean, I don't look at it quite like that, but I'm saying as far as you just want your daughter to be happy, you know what I mean, and like. It's just,
it's not saying that you don't want your son to be happy too, but it's
you want your son to be happy,
But I have a factoid on the mom, on the mother, Goldie, played by Norma Crane. She was suffering from breast cancer during production.
Wow.
And she actually died 2 years later. This was her last
film. Oh man.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That was a depressing factoid.
Yeah, that's one's gonna bring you down.
Yeah, no. And we're wrapping up tonight.
I know, but it's almost like I wanted to share that just to celebrate her. You know,
that is because she did not. I mean, she gave it.
I thought her performance was really great.
She played so well. I think that she did something that a lot of people don't like to discuss, where it's like you have this woman. She is a strong woman. And you have to be when you are living in a village where you're milking your own cows and feathering feathering chickens and doing all these different things. But just in life, when you are having someone, you need someone that's going to be able to be a partner. Mm-hmm. And so she was just as strong as heavy in her own way.
Absolutely.
She wasn't disrespectful. She wasn't any of these things, but I look at how you have this strong woman who is still yielding to tradition. She's still being respectful. She's doing these things, but she's also understanding that, listen, we can't always say yes to no. I have to disagree with you on that. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to be rude to you, but we need to think about this in a different way. And if I'm saying something to you, it's going to seem like nagging, but we also need to get it done. So I'm just thinking about just this dynamic, but then you're raising up 5 daughters, right? Then you have Tevi, who is, I'm raising up these 5 daughters, but I can't have them ignorant of the world. So then I find this man who he is going to school and he knows these different things. And so now he's like, listen, I'll pay you if you teach my daughters. And so I'm thinking about just that dynamic of you raising these 5 people and this dynamic of just strong parenting. You're going to have 5 strong personalities that are going to look at the world and they'll respect tradition, but also I'm teaching you and raising you in a way that's probably a little different than everybody else. Why? Because I have to build you strong enough to withstand whatever is going to happen. And in this case, that is moving across the world. So I can't have someone who is weak-minded and we're literally having to leave everything we know. Not that that was the goal, not that they knew that would happen, but it's just in a circumstance where it's like, I need to keep you strong and understanding and just life, period. So anyway, but just her character matched with Tevi's character. Like they just were, I just appreciated their dynamic. I really did. Just a strong couple.
And what we're talking about here is a cast that this is a lot of characters that we actually got to know. Like these people weren't just, even if they didn't have a ton of lines, we met these people and they gave us enough of these characters that we know them, you know, so we could now guess about the conversations these characters would have because we know them. And it was everyone, you know, we got to know all of those 3 older daughters. We got to know their personalities. We got to know the personalities of their suitors. You know, they gave us just enough. Even as we were meeting the other people in the village, you know, we met some of the other men, you know, we got to spend a little time with the rabbi and some of his, you know, main circle. We met them.
Those questions that we're asking that rabbi.
To develop all of these characters so well. I mean, maybe you do need 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, to flesh out the way
they
it
did
was,
a great job.
It had to be a long movie.
Yeah,
there wasn't parts I felt like were wasted.
It's
like
true.
sometimes when you're watching a 3-hour movie, you're like, you could have took this out. You could have took this out.
Totally.
But I didn't feel that. I felt like all the time.
They didn't waste any money. They didn't waste any time.
Yeah, I felt like it was all necessary.
I did feel the 3 hours though.
Yeah.
I know y'all said y'all didn't feel the 3 hours. It just kind of went on by for you. I felt the 3 hours.
I'm saying I was expecting to feel it, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
It was when the movie was getting close to the end, I had to pause to go to the bathroom or something. I was like, oh, it's almost done. And I didn't realize that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's what, because even movies like My Fair Lady, which are long, I don't feel like time was wasted, but I still kind of feel it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are certain scenes you're like, all right, this is a little stretched out.
Refrain, or can we kind of wrap
but
this up?
I felt like this was an epic movie that was covering not only these relationships, but we're covering a switch in the times. We're covering, you know, war. We're covering so many things.
Oppression.
Totally. Like you had to
between love and tradition. You know,
you had to flesh it out for
ties being tested.
So I'm okay with a long movie as long as you're not feeling at a moment like, all right, why
is this happening?
Yeah, you know.
Well, I got to tell y'all, I have one more little cinematography little factoid to share.
All right.
Okay. So to get the look of it, and I love to use the IMDb, you know, trivia pages. This is where this is from. It says, to get the look he wanted for the film, director Norman Jewison told director of photography Oswald Morris, who was famous for shooting color films in unusual styles, to shoot the film in an earthy tone. And Morris saw a woman wearing brown nylon hosiery and thought, that's the tone we want, and asked the woman for the stockings on the spot. And he shot the entire film with a stocking over the lens. And it says the weave can be detected in some scenes. I almost want to go back and look.
Yes, and I'm
definitely watching next time.
Because it's free on YouTube. It's free on YouTube, by the way. I don't know how long that'll be, but it's free with ads.
And now we would just pick like sepia. You know what I mean? But anyway, how did he accomplish it in the day? He put a stocking over the lens and shot the whole film that way.
All I'm saying is, sir, you probably could have ran to your local grocery store and just get a new pair.
Brown sugar?
That's fine. Yeah, he could have got a new pair of brown sugar. You didn't have to get it with her sweaty little leg.
Hashtag 80s babies.
It is little something, little bit bare skin, little something.
It's an American film. Where did y'all think this was shot? Did y'all think this was like? Did you guys put any thought into where are they shooting this?
You know, I did think that it was shot somewhere in Europe. Like I was thinking, like, oh, this is the Netherlands. Like I thought I just assumed that it was shot somewhere like that.
Because a lot of the period stuff we watch, the sets, great paintings. but those aren't real trees back there, you know. But there was something in this one that
it's all right. I still feel like cold when I watch it.
But so this one was filmed at Shepperton Studios in England and on location in Yugoslavia.
Oh.
And so, and again, I read that factoid after, but it makes me want to go back to see, you know, which parts looked set-ish and which parts looked like they were actually maybe in a town, you know, filming in Yugoslavia. So that would be interesting just to know that and go back and see it, go back and watch it again.
That's good.
Well, I think we talked it out. I think we talked it out.
Take us to the vote, bro.
Yeah, this will definitely get my fiddle. I really enjoyed this. I feel like I know I've watched it. I really do. I mean, I know I've watched it at some point because I mean it was just on so much, but I really felt like I didn't remember anything but the songs. And I feel like it's one of those stories that's always going to be relevant. Anybody can get, you know, a piece of it. And as a musical, it was tight. The cinematography, the music, the dancing, everything was tight. The story. And yeah, so it definitely gets my fiddle.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, the fact that we're talking about going back to watch it again when it was 3 hours in this day and age, that tells you what you need to know. You know, like I actually really would watch this again, you know, and I will watch this again. And the other thing I will say is, you know, growing up in Pittsburgh, we had, you know, a level of insight into the Jewish community. It was just by nature of, you know, our network and our community and our friendships and our neighborhood. And so, you know, I also appreciated this movie as a way for me to have some insight a little bit more into that community. And then, you know, I'll just keep it real, y'all. They're one of my favorite shows of all time, The Nanny, okay, with Fran Drescher. I mean, I'm well on the record as this is like one of my favorite shows of all time. I love that show. I have seen every episode a bajillion times, and I still will go and just turn on the episode of The Nanny on YouTube and just watch the whole thing, and I just love it so much. And all throughout that show, they're making references to this movie. Okay, they are constantly like calling people a Yente. Okay, you know, anybody who's trying to like matchmake or like be in the business, like anybody who's like a busybody, they call it a Yente. You know, and so I gotta say, you know, I feel like I'm now going to appreciate The Nanny, some of the show episodes of The Nanny even more because I've now watched this.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought it was well done. I thought the writing was really good. I thought the acting was just really, really good. And, you know, not one weak singer in the bunch.
Yeah, yo.
Every single dance scene.
I mean,
this one little ballet scene between, it was with the youngest daughter, you know, and it was just like, do that thing, girl. Anyway, so there was just, the dancing was just truly well done as well. And so I'm going to tell you all, I was actively looking for story gaps. I was. So like when we were at the wedding and we hadn't yet seen a reaction from the butcher about the fact that his marriage contract had been broken, I was like, how are they going to just take us to the wedding without us seeing a confrontation with the butcher? But they had it in store. It happened at the wedding, you know? And so anyway, I was looking for gaps. Didn't find them. So I would recommend this movie. Definitely gets my fiddle.
Nice. Well, I will tell you, this movie does get my fiddle. And it gets my fiddle because of everything that was already stated in terms of just how well it was done, the great singing and acting, the dancing, just great storytelling in general. But it mainly gets my fiddle because of the ability to question what you've always believed, and for there to be room for that. And for that to be okay. You don't just always believing in something just because someone said doesn't always mean that it's right. And it may not be right for you, even if someone said that is the right thing to do or the right way to go. You should always be able to chart your own path. Something the three of us always say all the time: if you're not harming anyone, why not? And you're not harming yourself, hopefully. But if you're not harming anyone, What's the harm in doing it? What's the harm in believing it? Or, just whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really appreciate this opportunity to watch someone have to question something they've known their entire lives, and be able to grow and move another way, and there to be room for that. Because when someone is growing and changing, you've got to be patient with them, and you have got to be patient with yourself. If you are beginning to believe something you've never believed before, it all takes time. Don't be frustrated with yourself if you're deciding to believe something different. So it absolutely gets my fiddle.
Love that. Love that. And y'all, it can be so exhausting watching movies that tell the story of resilience of oppressed people. It can be exhausting. This movie didn't wear you out though. It was something hopeful that it just rang so true. It just rang so true. Well, there you have it, folks. Fiddler on the Roof is a classic from the Wright Perspective. Thank you for joining us. We're just so grateful for your viewership, your listenership, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Love you guys.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.